A New Day with Dr. Tammy Bradshaw Scott, a program dedicated to addressing current issues and offering solutions and hope for each new day. Dr. Tammy is a registered psychologist and licensed marriage and family therapist with degrees in clinical psychology. And now, here is your host for A New Day, Dr. Tammy.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very special and fun show for you. I always loved my pets when I was growing up. They were my friends, and I felt a very special connection with them. I remember when I was a young girl returning home from a day at school, I would go out into our backyard and check on and interact with our animals, my friends. Not a lot has changed from those days and those many years ago. I still love animals, and I greatly appreciate how they can bring so much to our lives. Crixus here is my very special furry friend, and he brings so much joy and comfort every day. My doctoral research, I investigated the positive impact, reduced stress levels, and improved quality of life that canines can bring to veterans of war. As I have read so much research, I have been absolutely amazed at all the supported studies that have been conducted on the positive effects that canines can have on folks who suffer from different mental illnesses, especially post-traumatic stress disorder. Today, we will hear from two individuals who have a passion for training canines to help people who have physical and psychological disabilities. Will you please join me in welcoming Bob Wendler and Nicole Meadowcroft? Oh, beautiful. Aren't they beautiful? Wonderful. Well, thank you both for being here, and thank your furry companion and guide dogs and friends that they are. Nicole, I would like to start maybe with you and just ask you what inspired you to do the work that you do?
Yeah, it's a long story, and I'll make it as short as I possibly can. But I'm visually impaired. I have an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, so I lost all my peripheral vision. And I knew when my vision got real bad that I would have to get a guide dog, or it was my choice to work a guide dog. I've been in love with dogs ever since I could hold a leash in my hand. So my search for guide dogs led me all across the country to find out that most of the schools required you to stay there for a whole month at a time. And I just couldn't do that, as I had an in-home business training dogs, and I also was pregnant with my first child. So through many friends and a lot of help, I actually started training my own guide dog, which led me to having an organization that trained just guide dogs. That's how I met Bob originally, at a convention. But I was so exhilarated by the feeling and independence that I got from my own guide dog. I wanted to help as many people as possible. And there are so many people with disabilities that can be enhanced, with the dog, beyond blindness and people that have low vision. And it's been an amazing journey to help people, veterans and other civilians that have disabilities.
Oh, that is wonderful. Can you tell us a little bit, Nicole, about your organization and, how this happens?
Yes, absolutely. Custom Canine Service Dog Academy is based out of Madison, Wisconsin, but we have clients here in the Southern California area, and we're hoping to be able to provide services to many more Southern California residents, veterans, and other civilians who need our services and want that enhancement through the dog. So all of our dogs are placed free of charge. We have wonderful volunteers. We're all volunteer staff with huge hearts that just want to do this to help people. And it's an amazing group of people to work with, and I couldn't be more proud.
That is wonderful. Absolutely. Thank you so much. How about you, Bob? Do you share a little bit with how you started doing this?
I actually got my start working with dogs in the military. Back in 1968, I enlisted in the Navy and ended up in the Canine Corps. So I spent a year and a half in Vietnam as a canine handler. And then after I came home, I decided that I wanted to dedicate my life to my dog that I had to leave in Vietnam. And so I felt that I needed to do something in his honor. So I decided that I wanted to make a career out of working with dogs to honor him. And
now, Bob, real quick before you go on, I'm really interested to know what you were a canine handler in Vietnam. What does that exactly look like?
I was a sentry dog handler, and basically what would happen was I was in the Navy, and they would take us wherever they were building sensitive military installations, and we provided security for the base. We worked with the SEAL teams, so we were out and about. So yeah, it was. And coming back to the United States, I wanted to continue working with dogs. So I worked with sentry dogs and police dogs for a while, and I just said, there's got to be more to it than this. And I was going to college on the GI Bill, and I saw a guy working a guide dog on campus, and I went,
there it is.
That's it. That's it. So that was 40 years ago.
40 years ago.
This month.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that very long career.
Yeah, thanks.
So tell us a little bit about what you do exactly with the dogs.
Up until yesterday, I primarily trained dogs for the blind, okay, as guide dogs. And when Nicole and I met at a convention 7 or 8 years ago, we met, and she asked me to mentor her with her new program that she was getting started. And I thought, wow, that is so awesome. So I was able to do that for a while, and then she had to retire her dog, and she was seeking another dog. And I had seen her, I had met her, I knew who she was and how she walked, and she said, I need a new dog. And I had this dog in training, and I saw them together. I knew that they would dance well together.
Oh,
and so
I love that.
It was amazing to watch them grow as a team. And the beauty about this entire story is that after I gave her that dog, I was diagnosed with PTSD. And I went through a program, and she had given me this dog to raise for her program. And I find it kind of interesting that a blind lady was able to see what this dog did for me spiritually and in my healing process. And she gave the dog to me.
That is amazing.
So,
wow, how incredible.
Bless her.
Yes,
Bless her.
absolutely, absolutely.
So I've dedicated the rest of my career to helping her enhance lives
that is fantastic.
for veterans and others.
So tell me a little bit, first with you, Bob, and then Nicole, but how do you work with the dogs for someone such as yourself who's been diagnosed with PTSD?
Dogs have been trying to tell people what's going on in their hearts and in their souls for hundreds of years, and we're just now learning how to listen to them and being able to realize what it is that they're trying to tell us. So we're looking at dogs' natural instincts, things that they've been doing for all of us, that they do for every single one of us. It's just that now we're starting to recognize, and once they do a certain behavior, we're learning how to reward them for that, so they want to continue doing it. And so we're enhancing that. Anki here, one of the things that we do is a compression lap. Good girl.
Oh.
Good girl. And during this time here, I can feel her heartbeat, I can feel her breath, and if I match mine to hers, if I'm feeling anxious, it calms me down.
Okay.
Lay down. Good. So we're enhancing that, and they do these things naturally. She's watching my back right now.
Oh.
And that's a natural instinct for her to do.
Okay. Because that's part of the PTSD where,
Needing to know that somebody's got my back.
Hypervigilance, yes.
So that's something they do naturally. And if she
Yes.
feels my anxiousness, she'll move herself around. So
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, my work with veterans and in my research and my work with the veteran population, I have spoken with veterans who just, swear that their canine has saved their life. and they just don't know how they would be able to go out into public and, do the things they do without their dog.
Definitely my guardian angel.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And of course, my heart and desire is to see that we can have one of these beautiful, canines for every veteran, who needs one, and I think that that's part of what we, really owe to them for their service.
Absolutely.
And by the way, thank you for your service, but you have a wonderful companion to help you along.
Great.
So, Nicole, in your work, now do you primarily train people to train, or do you train the dogs for folks who have visual impairments and other disabilities?
We haven't really focused on the guide work lately because with our relationship with Bob and that connection, they've been going through that organization that he used to work with. But we do a lot with our veterans with PTSD. That has just been a very huge need as of late.
It's huge.
We do a lot with children with autism and every other disability all in between. And so how it starts is we work with puppies. We get babies at about 8 weeks old or so, and we have our volunteer puppy raisers take them into their homes and love them and socialize them out in the community. And as they grow, I think one of the unique things about our program is that we kind of let the dogs tell us what they like to do. So if I have a dog that's real sensitive to feelings, or a dog that I think would do well with PTS work or working with a child with autism, I can kind of start looking at those dogs when they get to be about a year to 18 months old and kind of pick and choose what career path they can go into.
I see. So you would, at that point, when they're about that age, you can begin to identify different characteristics?
Yes. Yeah, and we imprint skills all along their training. We meet with our trainers, our puppy raisers, every 2 weeks, and then we just build on skills. Some dogs like to retrieve, some dogs don't. So the ones that don't like to retrieve, I wouldn't place with someone who uses a wheelchair or needed that extension of their arms and their legs for that kind of assistance. And really, when we're looking at matching what dog to what client, it is really matching your personalities together, life, activity level, lifestyle, what the unique needs of that client are going to be. And Anki is, like Bob said, it was a kind of a special story, but he was actually training her to be my successor guide dog for Snickers. That was the plan. And in turn, I was going to have a litter with her and give puppies to be trained for blind people, just to give it back for the help he was providing to us. And over the time that he had that dog, I just saw those two really grow. And I saw Bob being a little bit worried about when I'm coming to take her and how long she'll be gone and this and that.
It was too late. It was already happened. That bond was there.
I could see what was happening, but
Sure.
but I could see what was happening with Bob too. I've known Bob, like you said, 8 years now, and he was changing because of this dog in his life that was living with him full time. Even though he worked with dogs every single day, they're dogs for other people, and this dog just stole his heart, and I think it goes both ways. But I could see that, and I came out here last year to work with some clients, and he started drilling me right away. Well, when are you going to take her, and how long? And I wasn't going to tell him until later in my stay that the dog was going to stay with him, and I'll never forget that moment. That was great. But Bob's grown, and in his healing and in the way that he's
Absolutely.
being able to handle triggers and the things that veterans with PTSD have to do.
Absolutely.
And I think it's just incredible, and it says a lot that he went 40 years before being diagnosed.
Yes.
So,
And that alone is tragic. As a therapist, psychologist, that should never happen, but it happens. It happens all the time. And part of the reason why we want to talk about this today and share about how much canines can help is because there are so many people out there, such as our veterans, who could absolutely benefit, and their lives could be changed. But Nicole, you bring up a very interesting point, which I wanted to actually, ask the two of you about it, your opinions. As I, in my research and looking at all the research out there with dogs, canines, companion animals, There's so much out there that supports the fact that, the companion animals help us, psychologically, of course, physically, in so many ways, on so many levels. But what's very interesting is it's really more about the canine bond. So the bond that you have with that companion animal, and not just so much the ownership, correct?
Absolutely. It is all about that bond that you have. Bob and I both walk in those shoes with our dogs, but especially for the veterans with the post-traumatic stress, those dogs are alerting them to flashbacks, night trauma, night terrors, nightmares, and the dogs start picking up on those things before, these veterans do. Yes. And that is hugely in part because of that bond that they have. They have to have a connection.
Yes.
So it's really not as simple as going to the pound or going to a breeder and buying a puppy and thinking this dog is going to be, my service dog.
Yes.
Sometimes that works, but it is kind of a process, and it's amazing when it's right.
Well, and that's why I appreciate you bringing that up and talking about how you take them after this year and so many months, and you can see their specific characteristics, because that's a very important point that I make when it comes to matching, where you need to really match, and it can happen so beautifully without you even realizing.
Yeah.
That's my crixus. There is just that bond.
I think most people have relationships with their animals, with their dogs. And there's a big difference between that relationship and a bond. And they need to have a working rapport, what we call a working rapport, so that we're able to give and take, and then understand when the dog is giving something that we're rewarding that behavior. So that bond just gets stronger and stronger. The thing about having a service dog versus a pet is most people that have pets go off to work and the dog stays in the backyard and then is happy to see them when they get home, and then they get fed, and there's a relationship there. She's with me 24/7 wherever I go. So I rely on that. So that makes the bond much stronger, because we rely on these dogs as service dogs. They know how important that is, and we need to make sure that they know that we appreciate it.
Yes, and what a great point you make there. It's not just the bond, because that's critical, but then that relationship. So how, Bob, how do you see that happen as you're training them and working with their handlers,
It's, in working with guide dogs, it happens at a different time with each client.
Okay.
But it happens at some time where the dog just goes, I got it. Let me take over. And once the person gives of themselves and says, I trust you enough to take care of what I need to have you take care of, it happens. And then to be able to sit back and watch that, and to know that we were part of that at one point or another in somebody's enrichment, fills that cup right back up again. So,
that's wonderful. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. In my research for my doctorate, I was looking all the way back, we're ancient Egypt and around the world, not just, here, but globally, and so far back that you see in the writings, they had captured what, these dogs mean and what they brought to people's lives and enrich their lives, many times being buried, of course, with their owner. There's been issues on planes, things like that. Do you feel like we've moved far enough along to where folks can feel that they can bring their service dog, guide dog with them?
Go ahead, Nikki.
Okay. I don't want to start talking at the same time. Unfortunately, there has been a lot more recent problem with people faking service dogs.
Okay.
And that is an issue for everybody, but an issue for the legitimate people with disabilities that have a service dog, and our veterans especially, because if you're confronted about it, some of our veterans, that's a trigger for them.
Yes.
And they're using that dog for support, and then they have to defend why they need that dog, and oftentimes having to disclose having a a disability, and I don't know one veteran that I've worked with so far that's proud of the fact that they have PTSD or other issues. So it's really unfortunate, and I don't know what the total solution would be, but I would hope that people that are selling, service dog equipment to people that aren't qualified to purchase those, I don't know where it needs to start, but it is a big issue. It is a big issue, but there is a big difference between service dog and therapy dog. And also too with the new, the Americans with Disabilities Act kind of redid all their laws and said emotional support animals do not have public access anymore. So you can't just have a dog that lowers your blood pressure. They have to be trained to do skilled tasks to mitigate disabilities. That's what makes a service dog able to have public access. And with PTSD too, I think a lot of people, they think it's a psychological thing, but it also turns into a physically disabling issue for them.
Yes.
So when they're having flashbacks or they have a trigger, every client is different, but some of them can't breathe, they lose their balance, they get incoherent, and those dogs are trained to do skills for them to bring them kind of back into focus and be able to help them function, at least to get into a safe place and somewhere where they can do their self-care.
Now, currently, and so it helps me understand a bit more now why that has become an issue when it comes to folks getting a vest for their dog or something like that. I have seen and heard a bit about this, so that would make sense why there may be some pushback and that's happening. And that's very, that's really too bad, because for the folks who really need their dogs, those other people are doing a real disservice. So
Right. And
I've seen those on,
Yeah, and we act as advocates for our clients, and we really have focused a lot on educating our clients on how to react to those questions and how to, explain to people by educating them as well.
Yes.
On what's legitimate and what's not.
Yes, very good point. Can you differentiate, just for our audience, the difference between a therapy dog and a service dog?
Absolutely. So a therapy dog would be a dog that you would own. So let's say one of our audience members has a golden retriever and they own that dog, but they want to take that dog to the hospital or to the schools to visit with patients or students. By invitation of that facility, they can go get a therapy dog certification, which basically means your dog has good manners and is not going to hurt anybody, and that you understand how to, have patient confidentiality and things like that. But essentially, you take your dog to visit patients and things, and the dog is just well-mannered, and people can pet your dog, and it makes everyone feel good and fuzzy, and it's a very wonderful thing to have. Great for the schools. A service dog is trained for somebody specific, like Snickers is trained to be my guide dog, and he does specific tasks for me that enhance my disability. So a guide dog, for instance, takes me around obstacles, stops at changes in elevation, avoids traffic situations or pedestrians. A service dog like Anki, who's working just for Bob, not for everyone in the hospital, does the compression work and the positioning work and wakes you up from your night trauma and retrieving and balance and brace work and things like that. So they're trained to do specific tasks to help a person's disability. Okay. And that's the biggest difference.
Okay, great. That really helps to understand that difference. Now, Bob, since you have PTSD and your dog is for you, for PTSD, you don't have a problem, do you, going out and taking her everywhere you go?
And absolutely not. I feel so much more secure knowing that she's with me in places that I go. I recently did a trip to Colorado for a motorcycle ride, a fundraising event, and I was terrified of thunderstorms. They used to just terrify me, and I went to a motorcycle ride there, and I saw the storm coming from our hotel room, and the closer it got, the closer she got to me, and I ended up going out on the patio and appreciating that thunderstorm. and I would have never been able to do that before.
Wow, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. Well, you know, I have the highest regard and respect for what the two of you are doing, because as I work with so many patients and clients, I see how they could benefit, particularly the veterans of war. In this last, few moments here, I'd like each of you just to share a bit of just briefly what you would like the public to know and how they can help further your work. Because as you said, you have volunteers, and we know it takes money to do everything that you're doing. So Nicole?
Sure. There's so many ways people can help, whether it's donating a professional service or financially, puppy raising. Who doesn't want to raise a cute
I'll raise
baby?
babies.
And a lot of people say, oh, I could never give the dog up when it comes to that time. And that's just because we're all selfish. It's hard. It is very hard. And if it wasn't hard when you were turning that puppy in to be trained for a disabled person, then you'd be doing this for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
But it's very bittersweet, but one of the most rewarding feelings and experiences that you will ever have.
You need help.
We need help.
Okay.
We need
And
help.
money, right?
And money.
Okay, yes.
It takes money.
Okay, so if folks look you up and then they can find out ways. You have a website and
Yes.
people can look you up. Very
Yes.
good.
Yep.
Very good.
customcanines.org. And
Great.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. This is just amazing, and you have lovely, wonderful canines.
Great.
Thank you
Thanks for
so
letting us
much.
share.
The research strongly supports companion animals being good for our health, physically and emotionally. I love the gift that we have in our furry friends, and I really don't know what this world would be like without them. I want to thank all of you for joining us here, and especially I want to thank our guests, Bob and Nicole. And until next time, I wish everyone the best for a new day. Thank you.
This viewer-supported program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is invaluable and appreciated. To send a gift or for more information, please contact Dr. Tammy at the address on your screen. And thank you for joining us for A New Day.